Delhi-based filmmaker Shaunak Sen's documentary All That Breathes has bagged the prestigious L'Oeil d'Or Award at the Cannes Film Festival 2022. Also called the Golden Knight, is the biggest documentary award at the festival. The 90-minute long documentary follows siblings Mohammad Saud and Nadeem Shehzad, who have devoted their lives to rescue and treat injured birds, especially the black kites. The Delhi brothers become the central focus of Sen's film, and their story documents a larger snapshot of the city where the air is toxic and the ground is on a slow burn of social turmoil. Thank you so much, Shaunak, for joining us today. And we're really excited, and congratulations for the award.
Thank you. Thank you.
Shaunak, before we begin talking about this, and I'm sure the excitement levels are really high with the award, your last documentary, Cities of Sleep, focuses on seeing Delhi through the prism of sleep and the mafia around it. You've also traveled quite a bit since then. But in All That Breathes, you focus on wild creatures in Delhi and a rehabilitation center dedicated to saving them. What made you really zero on telling a story about these two brothers and their work on kites?
I think the brothers came eventually. Before that, the film started with the triangulation of three things. Firstly, I was interested in this texture of greenness that one encounters in the city constantly. When you live in Delhi, the air is a kind of heavy, concrete, visceral, tactile, often oppressive kind of an entity, right? And you're constantly very conscious of breathing in things that are noxious and hostile to your sense of well-being. So I was interested in that kind of finding a sort of visceral quality to the air. Apart from that, every time you look up, you have this kind of a hazy gray monotone sky that's laminating the city entirely. And in it are these tiny lazy dots that are gliding constantly. So which are the black kites. So I was interested in this figure of a bird that's falling off the sky, and it felt narrowly at first instance apocalyptic, but above and beyond that, it felt like it was some kind of metaphor of the ecological malaise of the city. Apart from that, I was also very interested in the human-animal relationship as a kind of site of philosophical inquiry. So I was conceptually interested in it. So we started looking for people who have a kind of deep or a profound relationship with the skies or with birds. And that's when we first encountered the work of the brothers. And once you've gone to their house and gone to that damp, derelict basement where there's sort of industrial decay on one side and there's these magisterial birds being treated on the other, it's very inherently cinematic. The sheer salient bipolarity of those two places. And I got very interested in the brothers because they have a kind of philosophical disposition towards climate change that marked me, that felt to me to be very refreshing and different, because it's not like, a lot of environmental discourse is either saddled with a kind of sentimentalism, or it has a kind of bleak gloom and doom sort of narrative towards the inevitable apocalypse that we're all heading towards. And the brothers, of course, they have the kind of front row seats to the apocalypse, so to say. They're literally treating birds falling off the sky. But they have a kind of wry resilience, they have a kind of put your head down and get on with the work sort of a thing, which felt very refreshing to me. So that's when we started. And I shot them nonstop for 3 years, while also shooting wildlife in the city, like different animal, non-human lives in the city. So that's how the film. Once you begin, it's like a free fall, right? It's like it has its own momentum.
Whatever comes, yes. In fact, that was my next question, which I wanted to ask you, was how did you find the brothers? But you did tell us you were on a lookout for people who were actually working. But just going back, what were your thoughts on making them, the main subjects in your film, and how to decide what angle to take in the story?
Well, I mean, these things always seem bigger in prospect but suffer in retrospect. When you begin, what happens is that you have a kind of conceptual scaffolding that's undergirding everything that you're doing. For me, I was interested in the air, or the experience of the air, or this vague sense of like ecological, like being at the brink of some kind of a collapse that
Okay.
we all, I think, feel with the environment in the city. But it's also, of course, a city that one deeply loves, and one is embedded in the vernacular and colloquial cultures of it. So it's also laced as much with a kind of affection and interest and deep engagement.
Mhm.
Um, Alongside this was the brothers and their honestly like surreal life and everyday, like the day-to-day lives of them. So we started shooting like that, and my interest was not in making a pedantic observational verite documentary that's purely sociological, but
Mhm.
making something that was cinematic, that was poetic and lyrical and interested in denser philosophical questions. And the
Mhm.
brothers' lives are, are ripe with it, are constantly replete with it. So we I had the good fortune of working with a very well-known German cinematographer and then an Indian cinematographer called Riju Das. But this German cinematographer, Ben Bernhardt, came in, and that's when we decided to sort of, the structure was that we stick to this tiny, damp, dingy basement where the brothers work with the injured
Okay.
girl,
Yeah.
and that cuts to the broader vistas of the city itself.
Mhm.
So we keep sort of the homing in on the very specific and particular lives of the brothers was a kind of like lens into zooming out into the broader vistas of the
The
city.
larger.
So
Yeah.
that kind of extreme compression and decompression was the grammar of the film.
Okay. So that's what was the treatment as well.
Yeah, I mean that became a kind of editing structure. It became a kind
Mhm.
of cinematic vocabulary, and I think it also became the kind of conceptual linchpin of the film.
And I guess that's the reason, for the award. I mean, the way it's come out. In terms of your learning, Shaunak, if I can ask you, what were some of the important things which you've learned? Obviously, when I talk about even the importance of kites in a landscape, urban landscape like Delhi, what are the issues you feel, are being faced by these predatory birds today?
I mean, that's like quite a bit. But I mean, things that are worth signposting immediately is that,
Hmm.
so the black kite, if I'm not mistaken, has suddenly, it's the densest population of the black kite in the world right now in Delhi. That has to do with a bunch of things. I think it has to do with a
Hmm.
lot of food because of the landfill and so on. But at the same time, just its urban career is thriving, but at the same time it's also like the number of black kites that you see today, if you speak to the brothers Nadeem and Saud, will tell you that it's also increasing day by day.
Yeah.
So like urban ecology is a fascinating thing right now because more and more of the world is becoming urbanized, and however we think of nature as that which is happening in the forests or jungles outside or in the seas or
Hmm.
something that's happening inside the body, not as a city thing, but the city itself is a foundational kind of a place within which a lot of behavioral changes and in fact now experts say evolutionary changes are being triggered and activated in animal life. So songbirds are singing at a higher pitch so that their mates can hear them over the sound of traffic. All kinds of, like you look at behaviors of lizards, rodents, different kinds of things where behavior is changing because of the city itself. The city is a kind of habitat that's foundationally transforming a lot of, from light pollution etc., which is changing behavior in the night and so on. So the city as a site of um, changes evolutionarily, philosophically, conceptually is a major kind of a thing. So, and that's what I was also interested in.
So, Shaunak, you've also said in the past that the film began, as a project initially to uncover the stories of these two brothers, but it ended up about being about our fragile ecosystem.
Well, I would, conversely, I don't think it was ever about uncovering the brother's life, but
Okay.
not insofar as it was about being interested in these broader, more zoomed out issues of the ecology of birds, human animal relations, relation between the sky and the city of Delhi, and so on. And the brothers themselves became a kind of vectors to instantiate those things. And of course, the specificity of their lives has a kind of blunt force that overpowered everything else. But that's how the film began. What was truly exciting was I began with a simple question, with a deceptively nominal question of it being why do the brothers do what they do? And I don't think they have an answer. And I don't think so. The film was an exploration of that, of why people have a kind of a incipient cruel optimism that drives them to do things in life, even against all odds, without it ever sort of lapsing into a kind of maudlin, sentimental sort of thing. So that's what I was interested in. I was interested in, I want people to walk to the theater and look up at the skies. I want to enchant the skies. And, I've gotten messages from people since the Sundance and the Cannes screening saying that we started, whenever we're looking at birds, we're thinking of your film. And that's the kind of thing that I'm interested in. It's like, that's the power and the charm and the aura of filmmaking, where it can make even something as ordinary as a black kite, it can make it wondrous and otherworldly. And the idea was to try and take the searing, burning, hypnotic, ravenous love that the brothers have for the black kite and transfer it and distill it on screen. And hopefully, when people walk out, they have that kind of, there's something magical about that, like.
Yeah. And I think you've put that across magically for sure. I mean, if people are actually thinking, I mean, I think that's really well put across. Do you think documentary filmmakers can help raise awareness about such social and ecological issues through their lenses? Because the impact, of course, is huge.
Right. I think so. It's about how one pegs the word message. I hate the word solution. There's nothing that I despise or loathe more than the word. What is the solution that the film offers? The film is not meant to be a pamphlet. It's not meant to be like a, like a bullet which shovels or crowbars in, pedantic or utilitarian simple solutions. I think a film has to move people and not be immediately transparent in terms of what it's saying. And what it does is that it's like opens the blinkers in some ways, and over time you sort of get attuned to things or orient your visualscape to the world slightly different. That's what I think the best films that I've really loved have done, that I keep going back to a fantastic film, and every time I see it does something, it tweaks with your cultural DNA, it like hacks it. It's like a good film is a Trojan horse. So that's how, I mean, I'm interested in, if you mean messages, I mean messages that are snuck and smuggled in like a Trojan horse in that sense. But of course, in an obvious sense, it is about the ecology, and it's about the birds, and it's about the brothers, and it's about life. But hopefully it transcends into doing more things than that.
More things than that, I'm sure. Shaunak, in the larger discourse around climate change, do you think we're missing the significance of the role of other species, whether it's birds, insects? I mean, they all play an important role in maintaining the fragile ecological balance.
Of course, I mean, of course, but obviously I think one of the problems of environmental discourse to some degree, some kinds of environmental discourse, is that it's been overtly humanist, in that it sees the causal agent also as being the most significant in terms of, like, life itself is a kind of kinship. We have a kind of close neighborliness to other species, and the film also essentially is about entanglements and the deep kind of like neighborly ties that we have with things. So, like in the film, somebody says that we are all a community of air, and I think it's good to hold on to that kind of one has to decenter the human as the absolute reference point in the things. And I think a lot of environmentalism sort of frames or stages the human as the be all and end all and the absolute reference point on which these debates are negotiated. And I think that needs to be changed a bit.
Okay, just a last question. How is your life and the lives of the brothers changed since the release of the film?
It's completely altered. I mean, release of the film is a tricky question because you don't really know when it released per se, right? So, I mean, right now I'm super jet lagged. I arrived in India yesterday night. So I'm running on an enormous sleep deficit and so on. But I mean, no complaints. We're all, of course, besides ourselves, the film premiered at Sundance, virtually though, and we won the Grand Jury Award there. And then had the great fortune of playing at Cannes. And look, for me as a cinephile and somebody who loves, like, we were playing in the same section that we were in. There were films by one of the Coen brothers. There was the Chilean great filmmaker Patricio Guzman. There's Sergei Loznitsa, like real big wigs, like real heavyweights in terms of film. So it was absolutely, like, for me, I was very starry-eyed. For the brothers themselves also, I mean, I was to have the brothers there with us on the red carpet, to have the standing ovation after, and for people coming and like, you don't have to say anything. People's faces when they come and see what the brothers have done completely of their own volition for 15 years straight is like that. I always look, when making a film, the process is the reward. Yeah, the
Of
making of the
course.
film is the reward, and everything else is confetti on top. But this moment when the lights first come up and the audience stands up to clap and sort of give honor to the brothers, that has a kind of special kind of incentive for
For sure.
everything. And we spent 3 years shooting the film, so like it was no quick in and out kind of a thing. So it felt like it was the sort of thing that this creative enterprise needed as its ending. But I mean, we've just hit the road. Sundance and Cannes is a great thing. We'll do the festival rounds. We'll screen as much as we can. So let's see. I mean, it's still ongoing, of course.
No, this is amazing, and the sheer hard work. I mean, of course, they've been doing it for 15 years. 3 years is, again, like you said, it's a long time. The determination, the commitment, and I think more importantly, putting it out there, putting the right thing. Again, I won't use the word message and solutions, but I think just making sure that the viewer connects, I think, with the story. That's also really important. And wishing you all the very best, Shaunak. Thank you so much for speaking with us. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you.